We have a liftoff. We have a liftoff.
What up, everybody? What's up, everybody? It's been a while. It's been a while, and I am excited to be back here with the Authentically You podcast. What's up, everybody? Hello, Facebook family. Hello, Instagram family. Hello, YouTube family. Y'all know how we do. Do me a favor, and I see the numbers are coming up. Do me a favor and go ahead and hit that share button. If you have not already done so, I want you to do so by hitting the share button, because I think we're going to have a phenomenal conversation tonight. I'm excited about this conversation because, as always, we try to bring you something different, not just it's not everything spiritual. It's not everything about church. It's community. It's the whole nine yards. We don't limit ourselves over here on the Authentically You podcast. And so tonight, I am excited because I see y'all coming in. If y'all coming in, go ahead and just shout back at us and say, hey, how you doing? So grateful that each and every one of you are here. Tonight, we have a special guest from the city that y'all know that I love so much, that I've had blood, sweat, and tears in, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. We have one of Baltimore's finest gentlemen here with us this evening. He is my senator. If you're anywhere in the Baltimore region, you probably know this man from Baltimore to DC. I'm excited to bring on. He is the senator of the 45th Baltimore City Legislative District. He is a Baltimorean through and through. educated in Baltimore, works in Baltimore, for the people, by the people, the whole 9 yards. Would y'all help me welcome to the Authentically You podcast stage tonight, the one and only Senator Cory McCray. What's up, man?
Dwayne, always glad to be here. Just in this space with you, authentically you, just in the house, man. You look I see you look official with the whistle.
I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. I'm excited to have you tonight. First, before we jump into any conversation, we always like to do a check-in and just make sure that our guest is feeling good tonight. How are you feeling tonight? What are you excited about as you navigate these waters of life?
Well, I'm excited to be here. This kind of boosted my day. I was in jury duty earlier today, man. So I didn't get out of there until 5:30 and just been trying to catch up on the work. But more importantly, I'm glad about family. I'm glad about neighborhood. I'm glad about just life is good, man. And we're gonna have the next president, Kamala Harris, hitting that stage tonight. So I'm excited about that.
Listen, I love it so much because last week we had Dr. Zena Pierre on, and if you are familiar with who she is a woman who's put in a lot of work in the community, served in the Clinton administration and served in so many different things. And she kind of led the Sunday morning DNC church service in Chicago. So she was on here a couple weeks ago, and so we're excited to have another leader on here tonight. If you don't know, our pillars over here at the Authentically You podcast is life, love, and legacy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about all three today, but from Senator McCray's perspective, right? Everyone has a different perspective when it comes to life, love, and legacy. And so I want to jump in it, and I want to start here. Senator McCray, when you look at the word life, it's a 4-letter word. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you envision. Tell me what you hear. Tell me what you feel.
When I think about life, I just think about, growth. I think about family. I think about, the ability to truly live in a space where you're giving and just growing.
Talk to me about that. When you say family and growing, what does that look like? Go a little bit deeper, a little in depth for me. What does that look like from your perspective as being a community leader for, I mean, we can't even put a number of years on it, but it's been a while now. Tell me what that looks like from your perspective.
You know what? Well, serving in the legislature for over a decade at this point, man, I'm blessed to be able to give to the community that raised me, the city that raised me, and be able to pour into these young scholars. That's what I think life is about. Life is just more about finding out the things that you don't know, walking towards them without any type of fear, but also just growing and helping the people around you grow.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that you can speak well to that when you say helping the people around you grow. What are some things from your perspective and some of the things that you have done to help our communities move in the right perspective and in the right prospective as it is moving forward?
You know what? I just think about leveraging the position to make sure that from an educational standpoint, everybody has access to a great education. Yeah. I think about food insecurity. I think about the number of challenges that we have within our neighborhoods, and also being able to land one of the grocers right there at Orleans and Central, but making sure that East Baltimore community has the ability to have a healthy grocer in a walkable distance. I think about from a standpoint of making sure that we keep legacy going. Not only do we have the first Black state senator, Robert L. Dalton, he'll have a football stadium named after him right at Hartford and 25th. But then the person that I preceded, Senator Nathaniel McFadden, there's a $6 million park that's being built right there off of Orleans, and it'll be called the Nathaniel J. McFadden Learn and Play Park. So I think about it from an education, making sure that access is there, food insecurity, making sure that everybody has the opportunities to be able to get healthy food and address these food insecurities, but also about protecting the legacy, making sure that we remember that there are shoulders that we do stand on, that we should continually tell their story to make sure that that next generation and the generation after that know that the contributions that was made.
You know, I think we got to back this conversation up because you just said something in your words there that we really got to gravitate towards, and it's about keeping legacy. So let's back up just for a minute. As a young African American male growing up in Baltimore City, how in the world, somebody may be asking, how in the world did you get over into the lane of politics? Or better yet, I love this. Our friend, my big sister, your friend, she says it all the time. She says, I'm a servant. Delegate Jackie Addison, that's one of her number one words. She says, I'm a servant. How did you become a servant for so many years? And like, what sparked you at a young age to be like, hey, that's the lane I want to take right there?
Well, I always tell folks that, being a public servant or being an elected official was not on my agenda. I was, when I've known my wife, Demetria, since I was 17 years of age. The one thing that I think about with Demetria, as soon as she turned 18, she went out to vote. And wow. I didn't go out there and vote. So I didn't start voting, if anybody looked me up, until like my mid-20s. And then, even then, I was voting sporadically. Sometimes I would participate in primaries. Sometimes
What made you do that? What made you do that?
The reason why something like that come to be, I realized how blessed I am. I went through a 5-year apprenticeship program with the electricians. I'd owned a number of investment properties up and down the Bel Air Road corridor. I'd had a family at that time, 2 young daughters. And I had, a beautiful wife. I told you about Demetria, and I just felt like I was blessed. But Dwayne, the reality is that you can be blessed by yourself, but the real gift is when you can get people across that finish line with you.
Oh, man.
And that's what I realized, like, this is what life is about. How do I get the folks that I grew up with, the folks that I know in my neighborhood that may not be doing as well as Cory McCray, how can I get them across the finish line? How can I teach them and share the information that I was able to learn? And how can I do that at scale?
Man, this is amazing because I never knew that part. Like, when you look at you, you're like, man, he probably been voting since he was a baby. Like, he came out the womb voting. But I love this because you're saying, hey, I'm looking at life. I realize I'm blessed. And now I've got to challenge myself to do more. I've got to challenge myself to go after more. What were some of the things you said to yourself to be like, hey, this is what I know I have to do? Like, how did you motivate yourself into that lane?
Well, one of the things, Dwayne, I always think about, how do I shift and change trajectory of neighborhoods? So I think you can do that by generational wealth. I talk to you about the investments. I talk to you about just understanding how dollars work, but I also think that you do that through public policy and remove arbitrary barriers that have been intentionally put in our community's way to make sure that all of our folks are able to thrive and other communities still succeed. And that's why I went and ran for the House of Delegates, because I do think that public policy plays a role in the shift of our community. But then when I think about that, I have a ton of mentors at the moment. I didn't have the mentors when I was 15, 18, probably in my 20s, but I was around the environment the way I could see what was necessary and just duplicating some of the things that I was there. But at this moment, I have an abundance of mentors to help guide me, shape me, and help me get, always passing things over to Reed. I think about Joe Haskins over with Harbor Bank. I think about Theo Rogers, one of the developers here, Michael Cryer. It's a number of folks that are pouring into me at this moment to make sure that I produce, because they know that from that standpoint, I'm always thinking about scale and how can I bring people along with me.
Well, I think, man, whenever you talk about scale and bringing people with you, I had this conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and I said, I don't think that people understand what real wealth is. I said, real wealth is not what you can just acquire, but it's really about what you can help other people acquire, and with a caveat, who want to acquire it, right? Because we can't force people to go to the well and drink if they don't want to drink. We can be here, but we can't force them. But real wealth is opening that opportunity up for someone coming behind you, so that they can then open the opportunity up for their family. So when I really listen to what you're saying, what you're talking about is really generational wealth. And a lot of people assume that generational wealth is just attached to family life. And let me say this for the record. What you do with your children is amazing, right? And we'll get into that in a minute. But we think that it is leaving just our children something. And I tell people all the time, there's some people who they cannot physically have children due to issues within their bodies. However, they still left a generational wealth. When you view community, when you look at what I just said at generational wealth, how can people lean into that and be a part of, and I love your word too as well, the scale. How can they be a part of the scale? How can they be a part of generational wealth and kind of opening up opportunities for other people that's coming behind them?
Well, I think that you hit a couple points. One of the realities is you hit the secret right there is to be a giver, because when you're giving, it comes back to you double fold, sometimes tenfold. So we've always
You sound like you was gearing up in the voice there.
but making sure that, you know, like as you're giving and it's coming back, you realize that all these other doors open. I look at myself and thinking about, like, I try my best to stay in one of our schools at least once a week during the school year. And when summer is open, I try my best to spend at least once a week during the youth work programs or things of that nature that's going on. But the more that we spend time with the young folks that have the greatest gift, better gifts than we do because they have time. And the more that we pour into them and spend our time with them, sharing the information that we have acquired, and also opening up opportunity, opening up access, whether it's scholarship, whether it's job opportunities, or whether it's just a relationship that you may have that they need, and making sure that we deliver from that standpoint. But that's what I look at, as you shared, the most important part, which is just giving. Like, that's the secret right there. Most people don't know that.
Wow. You know, and for anyone that's watching this tonight, I really hope you're picking up a lot of the gems that he's talking about, because the reality of it is, if we're ever going to be the healthy community that we talk about, you know, I hear so many different conversations as I navigate through life. You have people that's happy about this or upset about this, or happy about that or upset about that. And the reality becomes that whenever you find most upset people, and you say, well, hey, what are you doing to contribute to the solution? That's when all mics get solid. Crickets into the room. And I think one of the things that you're hitting on, and we're not demonizing those individuals, what we're trying to do is give a solution to the fact that, hey, if you're one of those individuals who are critical or who have something to say or who feel like it may not be working out to your way, one, we want you to check your heart. But two, we want you to become a giver. I believe givers change the course of. It's coming through muffled. Let's do this again. All right. I believe, and it might just be that too. Okay, let's go. I believe that givers change the course of society. It changes the course of how we move into the future. Senator McCray, let's talk about this. The future of I you know, you can't speak to the whole Baltimore, but you can speak to an area of Baltimore. You can speak to what you see and what you may know. The future, where do we stand as a people? And we're going to talk about this candidate that we are supporting, both on the Senate side and the presidential candidate that we're supporting, and might we add, two phenomenal African American women. Okay, but when we talk about future, what do you see from your lens is going to be the driving force for our community to become better in the future?
Well, I'm excited about the future of Baltimore City. I'm excited because I can walk through any one of the neighborhoods in the 45th Legislative District and be able to share with you the short-term goals, the long-term goals, who's the partners that we're working with, and feel very good about that. There are a couple of neighborhoods where we're falling short, but I do believe that we're going to be going in the right direction going forward. as you talked about the United States Senate candidate, now next United States Senator Angela Alsobrooks, I'm very excited about that woman. I think that not only is she the right person for Prince George's, not only is she the right person for Baltimore City, but she is the right person for the state of Maryland, and she is the right person now. She's one of the people that I directly connect with when I think about my young daughters, knowing that she's raising a daughter, knowing that she grew up in the state of Maryland, knowing that education is so important, knowing that transportation is so important, knowing that public safety, as a former state prosecutor, knowing that it's so important, knowing that economic development, but more important, how do we make sure that we have equity, and how do we make sure that we raise capital for minority business? Being able to do that as the Prince George's County executive, I know that she will step in that U.S. Capitol on day one and lead by example. But more importantly, I feel that it will be fully representative of the thoughts that I have and share for Baltimore City. And then when I think about Kamala Harris, I'm so excited. I think that President Joe Biden has done a phenomenal job in reference to the last 4 years, but I'll be honest, it was just tough in reference to seeing at that age the lack of inspiration that was going on across the country. And I'm glad that he was able to make the decision on his own terms, but also say, my pick is Kamala Harris, our vice president, to ascend as the next president of the United States of America. And I'm just so excited because she has such a burst of energy. When I look through my timeline on all of my social media, she is just always in there. I feel like folks are engaged. I don't care if you're black, white, young, old, pink, or purple. People are excited about Kamala Harris. And like I said, I can't wait till she hit that stage tonight.
I love this. Let's talk and just shift for a moment into this family dynamic. You're a father of 4, and as you mentioned, you are a husband. Man, with the schedule that you keep for community and family, how is it that you're able to navigate keeping your sons involved in activities, keeping your daughters involved in activities, and then making time for your wife, as well as putting all of this effort that you have into the community? How do you do it? Like, we need to know the secrets. We need to know some gems to how you make this thing work. For some other people who may be coming up behind the rounds, we need to know how you make it work.
You know what, Dwayne? I tell folks that I'm very intentional. I'm very protective of my time. I'm very thoughtful about who I share my time with and how does it, like I said, impact at scale. Every day that I wake up, there's one thing that everybody knows is my priority, and that's my family. If I don't get that right, then what am I doing this for? So my job is to make sure that we are raising good. Me and my wife are raising good human beings, and we're trying our best to make sure that we do just that. And then as I think about what's outside of my house, I cannot just think about what's in my house because my children are impacted by the other children that's around them. So I also have to make sure that everybody's taken care of. What does something like that look like, Dwayne? I love this because let's say Angel Reese was playing at Coppin. It's not just my daughter that's going there, but her friends are also going there. Yeah. When you think about the Towson, watching Towson and getting on some of these campuses, it's not just my daughter that's impacted. Team is going to be from that standpoint. So that's how I look at things is I have to make sure that I'm protective of my community and the abilities that I do have and then the capacity that I do have. And I really, really enjoy that. Every day that I go to sleep feeling very good and I sleep very well because I know that I'll put every effort, every foot forward in making sure that I left this place better if I left it that night. So I say the secret is be very intentional. I say the secret is be very protective. Be mindful that everybody isn't deserving of your time. And you have to think about who do you share that with and be very intentional about what you're doing.
Woo! Man, dropping gems tonight. Dropping gems. I'm not gonna hold you long. Usually we do 45-minute interviews, but tonight I'm not gonna hold you long. I'm not, because I understand you've probably been out and been with your family. I just want to touch on a couple more things, and I think we'll seal this interview up. Talking about just being intentional with your time. Managing your time. When I hear you talk about being intentional, managing your time, as a community leader, as a husband and as a father, as a son, as a sibling. How do you take that intentional time and know how to divide it up to make sure nothing is being underappreciated or undervalued?
Well, I told you, I think you have to prioritize. I'm very clear on what my priorities are. My priorities are making sure that my family is in a good place, making sure that my community is in a good place. I do that through my legislative duties, apprenticeship opportunities, but more importantly, I'm always studying leadership. I tell folks that I read immensely. I read about leadership. I read about history because I think the history repeats itself. And I read about wealth, probably Black wealth in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, because I really do think that it was hard to accumulate significant wealth during that time under the conditions that they were doing it under, and always just trying to grow. Just trying to make sure that every day I'm also adding value to myself so that I can add value to others and I'm not shortchanging others. And I think I do that through different fellowships, making sure that I see different places. But more importantly, I talk to you about just making sure that if you see me, you always see that there's a book in my hand.
I was getting ready to ask you that. Just don't tell us all of your books because, some people can learn it later, but what is probably either one or two books that you read right now that like you are finding so much value in, and why are you finding value in that book that you possibly are reading right now?
You know what? So right now I look, it's on my table. I'm reading a book called Leadership and Loneliness. And it's just, it's a pastor that wrote it. I think it's a pastor in North Carolina that wrote the book from that standpoint. Joseph Whitaker III, senior pastor at the historic Mount Zion Baptist Church in Nashville. I said North Carolina, Nashville. But like I'm always trying to figure out what is it, maybe if it's one gem inside that book that maybe I don't know. From that standpoint. Some of my favorite reads this past year may have been, one of them was like Extreme Ownership. I think that it was a military Jocko. I couldn't remember his name, but he wrote it, and it makes you think about like, even to the extent of if you see something on the ground, do you pick it up or do you walk past it? After reading that book, I just immediately pick it up because I have to have ownership, and I have to have extreme ownership from that standpoint. So I'm always thinking about those pieces. But like from a Black wealth standpoint, I would tell folks to please pick up a book about A.G. Gaston. I would say please pick up a book about Herman Russell. If you have not read Reginald F. Lewis's bio, if you're from Baltimore City, that's a must do from that standpoint. But there's so many good books. Me and my colleague Mark Corman actually wrote a book list about 2 or 3 years of, and gathered favorite books from all the leaders that we admire, and said, if you had something to recommend, what would be 2 or 3? And we put together a book list. I think it was posted on Maryland Matters about 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow. Reading is the key, good people. What did they say? Whenever you want to hide something, they said specifically from Black people or Black man, you put it in the book. But as you can see, our senator reads because it's important for us to read. Let's address one more pillar.
I would just say too, if you're not reading, you're not growing. Like that, like that's one of the secrets, well-kept secrets. And like you said, the information is right there in the books for us. The people that have already did it, the people that are trying to give you the blueprint is putting it right there in the books. And I'm a very big student. I like to purchase hard books. So I don't do the audio book, but I like to underline my books. I like to mark up my books. So the things that I resonated with me at that moment, that I can go back and say, no, this is what I felt good about. Or if somebody borrowed one of my books, they can say, hey, this must have hit in a different way because Cory underlined this, or he marked this specific page from that standpoint.
I love it. Oh man. All right, listen. First, before we get into the last pillar, we got to know this picture behind you. What are these two pictures behind you? What is this? Come on. Tell us what this is. Tell us who they are, what it represents, because it's got the Cosby theme going on here. Right there. You remember that picture in the Cosby show? Yeah. Okay.
So here's what I would say. All throughout my house are pictures of family. And one of the things that I think, especially as Black men, we have a responsibility from a history standpoint and to protect the history of our family. And I didn't really understand that until about 4 or 5 years ago, Dwayne. So one of the pictures was done by Latoya Peoples, an artist working right here in the city of Baltimore. But I informed Latoya that I have pictures of 5 generations of women in my mom's maternal side. So this is a picture of not just my daughters, not just my wife, my sister, but my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother, so that every day my daughters can wake up and be very clear about what their lineage looks like. And then I love taking pictures on a yearly basis just to make sure that we reflect on the gifts that we're given, how loved we are. But Miss Kimberly King actually painted a photo of one of the pictures that we took that's hanging from that standpoint. So all throughout the house, you'll see things. And I do it, like I said, it's more for my children so that it's very clear, even if they're not subliminally, they can think about this because they've seen it every day that they wake up, and they don't have to think twice. If somebody ever asks that question, they can kind of see it.
I love it. Let's talk about this, and then we're going to let you out of here. We're coming up on one of the biggest elections probably in history. I don't know, maybe not so much, but well, it is. You know, Obama's was a big one. President Obama was a big one, but I think this might be a little bit bigger than my guy. Man, how important is this election?
You know what? I'm very intentional, man. If you look at a number of the pieces of policy that I've passed in legislation, and we've done over 100. I've been in there 10 years. We passed over 100 pieces of legislation, brought home millions of dollars back to our respective district. But I'm very intentional. And I really appreciate that the first piece of policy, as they talked about their agenda in the Kamala Harris administration, one of the things that I think about is she talked about housing and ownership. And that's so important. And it just resonated with me because I think about what I'm trying to create through my district. Kamala Harris had talked about why it's important. How do you build wealth? How do you keep things going? How do you think about legacy? And she talked about that through housing. So when I think about Kamala Harris, when I think about her hitting the stage, this is major. This is big because as we deal with the wealth gap, and it's increasing overwhelmingly, when we think about inflation, when we think about working families, when we think about the cost of education from a higher education standpoint, this is someone that immediately recognizes the types of things. We think about HBCUs and how they've been left behind historically. This is a graduate of an HBCU. She's overqualified, more than qualified to hold this position, holding it as a United States Senator, holding it as the Vice President, holding it as an Attorney General, also working in the state prosecutor's office. Like, how much more qualified do you need in reference to holding that office? But she does it, and she does it with ease, and she does it with grace.
Wow. Anything else you want to add to voters, not just in Baltimore City, but across the world, that may come across this on YouTube or Facebook? What would you say to say, hey, this is the route that you need to go?
Now, I want to take the opportunity just to lift you up, Dwayne. When I think about Authentically You, when I think about amplifying the voices of those that are typically unheard or the issues that aren't always taken up, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you. And not just thank you for myself, but thank you for my community for amplifying that ball. And that's what I think about. That's what it's going to take. Keep having these pressing conversations to make sure that we're doing it in a very intentional way, to make sure that you tell a friend and your friend tells a friend, and this is how we address the issues within our community. So I just lift my hat tip off to you. I see you got the Ravens over there, and just say thank you again.
Yeah, I do. I had to put my other hat up. Now, I'm not a Raiders fan, but because I coach at the Eastside Raiders, shout out to them, I had to put the Raiders hat up because I didn't want nobody to think I was switching teams. There's only one team to get to heaven, y'all. That's it right there. If you don't, that's it. It's purple. Some of my Philly people might argue with me because they want that Eagles bird It's a Ravens bird. It's not an Eagles bird. No, but thank
It's
you.
the Ravens bird.
It's a Ravens bird. That's it. It's only one way. Senator McCray, man, thank you so much for coming. I can tell you this, yourself and to all of your colleagues in the 45th, I could really name them all, really putting in some good work. And I'm grateful to be a part from my lane and excited about that. Thank you for serving our community wholeheartedly and genuinely. And thank you for keeping us in the fight. You know, this world can become self-centered. And we're grateful that you are still in the fight and you try to hear everybody's issues. You try to bring everybody to the table. And that's a hard task to unify people, especially when everyone has their own agenda. And not saying it in a bad way, but everyone has their own plans. Let's use that word. And so to unify people, to get people to see the bigger picture and not 100 small pictures is a remarkable task. I'm going to throw Senator McCray backstage while I give y'all my final words. Y'all throw some hearts up for my guy in the comments. All right. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am so grateful that you joined us for another broadcast of Authentically You. I want to challenge you as you have heard this conversation centered around community and life. I want to challenge you to make sure that you are not just doing what you do just to bring you up, but at any given cost, you're reaching back and bringing somebody with you. I understand not everybody wants to come up, but there are some people who do, and they need your help to do it. Would you consider bringing somebody up, changing somebody's mind, redirecting somebody's heart, changing somebody's future? Because I believe that the best people are the kind of people who are genuinely giving, and not just giving because they're looking for something back, but giving because they're moving towards the future. That's my final word. I pray that you guys have a wonderful night and that you enjoy your families as you embark on the rest of your life. Until next time, my friends, I'm your host, Dwayne Williams Jr. Have a good night.